Hi, my name is Kenny Rubin, and my book is Essential Scrum, and I'm going to talk about 3 different tips from that book. The first will be a quick overview of the Scrum Framework. So in the graphic that you're seeing, on the very left-hand side, that is our product owner. Our product owner is envisioning this fantastic blue cube. This is the product they want to build. Now, it's a pretty grand blue cube, so it's big. It can't be built in a short duration sprint. So in Scrum, we have this idea of a sprint, which is a time-boxed iteration, typically 2, 3, 4 weeks in duration. So since the blue cube that they're envisioning is quite large, the next step is to actually take that and break it into a set of features that form what we'll call the product backlog. Now in this picture, the product backlog looks like a collection of blue bricks. And you'll notice when you look at those blue bricks that the ones at the top are smaller and darker blue than the ones at the bottom. Smaller would, in this case, obviously mean smaller in size. Darker blue means more detailed. So we have to put this product backlog into the correct order to prioritize it. So the items at the top are smaller and more detailed. They're ready to be moved into a sprint. The ones at the bottom aren't. They're larger and less well-defined. The process, the activity by which we get the backlog into the shape is called product backlog grooming, which is made up essentially of writing and refining stories, estimating, that'd be the 2 hands with the ruler, and then prioritizing, putting them into the correct order. Now, the gray looping arrow that dominates the center of this figure, that represents a sprint. That's the time-boxed iteration in Scrum. The first activity during a sprint is sprint planning. And you'll notice sort of those 2 orange connecting arrows. They define a capacity. What is the capacity of the team to do work during this sprint? And the goal of sprint planning is actually quite easy. Pull work from the product backlog into the sprint that we reasonably can accomplish during the sprint. So you'll notice we've essentially pulled some blue bricks out of the product backlog and into the sprint. And you'll notice also that we tried not to occupy the full capacity. There's a little bit of open space at the top where those 2 arrows connect. And then that's because things turn out to be a little bit larger than we had expected, and having a little bit of buffer is a good idea. You also notice to the right is something called the sprint backlog. Now, this is put together by the development team with the purpose of trying to acquire confidence. Confidence that the items that they're pulling into the sprint can actually get built and delivered during that sprint. So in this picture, sort of the blue bricks are product backlog items. Those are features. And the green cubes, they represent tasks. Design, build, test, integrate type work. So the development team pulls that together, and by using it, they acquire confidence. Now, you also notice that on the gray looping arrow, there's a darker shadowing underneath sprint planning. That represents approximately how much time we would spend doing this activity. So, for example, on a 2-week-long sprint, a 10-day-long sprint, sprint planning might occupy approximately a half a day. You'll notice that the majority of the time in the sprint is at the next piece, that is sprint execution. That is where our development team does the design, build, test work. They, in a sense, do the green cubes in order to get the blue bricks done. And every day during sprint execution, the development team performs a daily Scrum meeting. This is a daily inspect and adapt meeting. It's an opportunity for the development team to be able to synchronize its work, to plan for the day, if you will. The outcome at the end of sprint execution in Scrum is referred to as a potentially shippable product increment. And what we mean by that is we built some of the blue cube, not all of it. Right? We weren't trying to build all of it. It would have been too large to have built during a short duration sprint. So we built some of it. And the point is that piece that we built should be done to a high level of confidence, should be potentially shippable. And potentially shippable doesn't mean we actually have to put it into production. That's a business decision. It means it's of good enough quality that if putting it into production were the correct business thing to do, we would. And the remaining 2 activities within a sprint are both inspect and adapt activities. The first is the sprint review. The sprint review is an activity where we're trying to take the potentially shippable product increment and look at what we just built and decide how we want to proceed forward. So it is the inspect and adapt on the product that we're building. And an attendance at that activity would be stakeholders who have an opportunity every sprint to review the work and provide guidance. That's immediately followed by the last activity, the sprint retrospective, which is the inspect and adapt on the process. So if the review is the inspect and adapt on the product, the retrospective is the inspect and adapt on the process. This is where the Scrum team members come together with the intent of trying to figure out how to do Scrum better in the next sprint. And at the conclusion of sprint retrospective, you'll notice that we come back around that loop and we do it again. We conduct the next sprint. And after we've performed a sufficient number of sprints, we know we not just have a piece of the blue cube, we actually have the blue cube that our product owner was envisioning, and we're in a position to deploy it. So in short, that is a complete overview of the Scrum framework. Okay, so that concludes the tip on the Scrum overview. I hope you found that useful. Once again, my name is Kenny Rubin, and my book is Essential Scrum, and I hope you'll go take a look in more detail. Thank you.